largest floating solar array, known as photovoltaics, is under construction in New Jersey. Energy Sage recently announced their seventh annual solar installer report with some interesting findings. And Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has vetoed a bill that would have killed net metering in that state. And 96% plus of all new installed generating capacity in the U.S. is renewable. I'm Jay Warmke with Blue Rock Station, and this is the news of solar for the week of May 2nd, 2022. All right, hitting the headlines. Construction has begun on an 8.9 megawatt floating solar array. It's being installed in Millburn, New Jersey, and it's going to be in a reservoir, a water reservoir, floating on the surface, and it will supply power to the American Water Canoe Brook Water Treatment Plant. And this 8.9 megawatt array will consist of 16,500 panels. One of the advantages of floating solar is not only does it take advantage of some system or locations that might otherwise have been marginal, but it does prevent evaporation from these water sources. It reduces the amount of algae that grows within that water by reducing sunlight, and it keeps the panels cooler so the array is more efficient. Energy Sage released their seventh annual installer survey, and what we found is 3 out of 5 installation companies have found that recently they have been hurt by supply chain issues, saying it's difficult for them to order as well as sell product at this time. Half of the installation companies said that if the investment tax credit, the federal investment tax credit, were extended for 10 years, they would begin hiring additional installers. But if the investment tax credit was eliminated, they would consider downsizing their operations. They did report that of all of the battery systems that are being installed, the one requested most by customers is the Tesla Powerwall. In fact, 47% of all customers requested Tesla. However, the most installed battery bank is the Enphase system. Generac is second with 32% of all installs. Enphase has 51%, and Tesla only has 29%. And the biggest impediment to growing their business, according to solar installers, is a lack of trained people to hire. The iconic building, Falling Water, which was Frank Lloyd Wright's design there in western Pennsylvania, has now begun to operate fully off of solar power. They installed solar in a field next door to the facility. This 540 panel ground-mounted system will provide 100% of the energy for this facility. California recently passed a bill, Assembly Bill 2316, which requires that 51% of all community solar project energy go to low-income households. And they also required that these systems incorporate battery backup so that this will add to the resiliency and the reliability of the local electrical grid. As I mentioned before, Governor Ron DeSantis has vetoed House Bill 741, which was designed to gut Florida's net metering provisions. Currently, Florida has pretty lucrative or generous net metering provisions where they will pay retail for power shipped back to the grid. This would have phased that down and then eventually out. Plus, they would have required that, or basically removed any limits to what a utility could charge for connecting to the grid if you have a solar array. To give an example, Arizona recently tried to pass a law where they would charge you $100 per month to be connected to the grid if you had a solar array. 96.3% of all of the new electrical generating equipment that was connected to the grid in January and February of this year were from renewable energy sources. The balance, a little less than 4%, was from natural gas. There has been no coal generating and no nuclear generating, actually now for several years. Renewables now account for 26.3% of all of the electrical generating capacity available on the grid. And despite the supply chain issues, in January and February, solar installations grew 36% over last year's at the same time period. And in the world of supply chain, during the last 10 years, China's market share of polysilicon, industrial scale polysilicon, has grown from being 30% of the world market to now controlling 80% of the world market in polysilicon. Polysilicon is primarily used to create solar cells, but it's also used to produce microchips. So that's the word from solar this week. We'll see you next week.